The police officer turned to Robert. "Your mum." "Emma's mum, not mine." Nodding, he turned to Emma. "Your mum said Charlie was upset. She always goes to the park on a Friday." Emma stared at him. Nothing made sense. But it was true. Every Friday, after school, they went to the park. Every Friday except this one. Charlie was missing. It was her fault. 1. Robert. 6 months later. It was Friday. For most people on the bus, that was a cause for celebration. The end of the working week and time to relax with their family and friends. It filled Robert with dread. He twiddled and turned his skull wedding band, pressing the sharp edges into his skin. He grabbed the back of his dreadlocks and pulled them tight. The pink elastic hairband he wore each day was his protection, his talisman. It held no power after 6 p.m. on a Friday. A small, brightly coloured ball rolled down the aisle and his stomach clenched. He pulled his camouflage jacket firmly around him and hunched in his seat. The ball came to a stop next to him, and he heard the clattering of excited feet running down the bus. He mustn't turn round and look. Instead, he stared at the back of the driver's greasy head. Robert shuddered and involuntarily turned away, coming face to face with the child who knelt down to pick up the ball. He sighed, only then realising he had been holding his breath. It was a boy, with short black hair and wide brown, heavily lashed eyes. The boy looked nothing like Charlie. He could relax as he forced a smile. How had it been 6 months? 6 months since his daughter disappeared. 6 months since Charlie was murdered. 2. Robert. Arriving home an hour later, Robert half expected to see Charlie running up the path to greet him. She would hug his legs and he'd ruffle her hair. She always did that when he'd taken the bus home. The journey was long and tedious, involving a change at the bus station. The connection was often late. Why did all buses have to go through the centre of town? Why couldn't they go around the outer edge? It would make his life so much simpler. He could go back to using his motorbike, his pride and joy, but it held no pleasure now. Truth was, he would rather face the drudgery of the bus ride. It meant spending less time in his soulless home. When he entered the living room, Robert wasn't surprised to see Emma scrolling through what he assumed was Facebook on her iPad. He noticed her smile when she read something that pleased her. The parent support group she spent most of her time on helped her to make sense of the loss. How? He did not know. She looked up briefly to acknowledge his presence. There was a pint of what looked like green algae half finished in a glass on the table next to her. She was beginning to get herself back, while he felt himself diminishing. "Do you want something edible to go with that?" he asked, pointing at the glass. "What do you have in mind?" she muttered, squinting at him. "I was thinking of a Chinese. It's been ages." He stopped speaking when he noticed her screw her face up. This was the first month since Charlie's death that Emma had been eating properly. Of course, Charlie hadn't died. She had been murdered, killed, butchered. The headlines were clear. But even when printed in black and white, the facts were still unrepeatable in public. "I hear your daughter died." You don't correct them. "No, she was butchered by a psychopath." That would be impolite. "It's okay," Robert said evenly, opening the fridge and gripping onto its side. "How about the rest of the quiche and salad?" Emma smiled. "Thanks. That would be nice." A chow mein would have been nicer, he thought. It might fill the gap, the emptiness. Ordering a takeaway on a Friday night, it's what normal couples did. Robert doubted there'd ever be that again. As he reached for the lettuce, he noticed dried blood on his finger. It had bled from the pressure of his ring. He lifted his finger to his mouth and sucked.